Christine Maende is my name, and our question of discussion is incentivizing unsolicited proposals is key in PPPs for developing countries. Review literature required from the following sources, among others, to provide a brief to the PPP unit for development of a guideline for handling unsolicited proposals. A number of developing countries, Uganda inclusive, have been interested in PPPs as a way to develop infrastructure, assets, and services. According to the Knowledge Lab, PPP is a long-term contract between the private sector and the public sector to provide a service or an asset to the public. However, the private sector always bears a significant risk. The PPPs are in two forms: the solicited proposals, which is done by the government, and then the unsolicited proposals that are initiated by the private sector and designed and presented to the government for approval. There are a number of countries that have experienced the unsolicited proposals, and among them are World Bank. World Bank works in major areas of the economy to help developed countries and developing countries achieve their goals. Since 1947, World Bank has approved over 12,000 development projects through loans and grants to help the developing countries achieve their goals, and this has been seen by a growth of 15 to 20% of total infrastructure in developing countries. However, unsolicited proposals have come in as an alternative for infrastructure development by the government. According to World Bank, by 2018, a number of low and middle income countries have benefited from PPPs, and approximately 4% of the infrastructures in these countries is as a result of unsolicited proposals. World Bank, however, states that governments need to determine whether they will accept the unsolicited proposals as part of their PPP programs. If they decide to employ these unsolicited proposal programs, then the government authority shall assess the merits of the submitted unsolicited proposals and find out whether there is a need for these proposed projects or if they are aligned with the priorities of the government in infrastructure development. World Bank therefore justifies that there is need for USPs so as to be able to develop the economies as a way of achieving the visions of the different countries. However, it notes a number of practices that the government should adopt in handling the unsolicited proposals, and one of the practices is that the procuring authorities must assess the merits of the unsolicited proposals and ensure that they align with the government investment priorities. Secondly, there should be a vetting procedure or a feasibility analysis done before moving forward with the unsolicited proposal. Another practice that's very important in handling the unsolicited proposal is that the procuring authority initiates a competitive procurement procedure to select the private partner that is best suited for the project. The World Bank says that the procuring authority should grant at least 90 days to all potential bidders to submit their proposals. However, there are challenges in this, and we see that the governments can adopt several decisions in order to be able to choose the highest quality USPs, and these mechanisms would include introducing submission requirements, that there will be requirements for all the unsolicited proposals. Secondly, that there will be fees for review of the unsolicited proposals. Then there should also be a central process of submitting these proposals and establishing the window time for the submission. Governments can therefore overcome the lack of competition in unsolicited proposals by taking up this and many more mechanisms to achieve and benefit from the unsolicited proposals. That's all I had to present about the experience of the unsolicited proposals by World Bank. I will invite my other colleague to come and present to you the experience of the Latin American countries in handling unsolicited proposals.
My name is Gloria Abalo, and I'm going to present USPs in Latin American countries. Latin American countries consist of countries like Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Chile, among others. All these countries have used USPs as a way of achieving economic development. I'm going to look at Chile and Argentina. The practice in Chile is that there is a central unit located at the ministry that is responsible for accepting and processing USPs. This central unit is the Ministry of Public Works, and it is the first point of contact for USPs, where they submit their propositions together to the relevant agencies and reject. The central unit located at the national level that is responsible for accepting and processing USPs. The central unit is the Ministry of Public Works. It is the first point of contact for USPs, assessing initial submissions together with the relevant agencies. Chile requires that there are two stages of submission of USP. The first stage is the pre-feasibility stage, and the second stage is the feasibility. Under the pre-feasibility stage, the USP proponents must include a project description, an initial design and scope of the project, the demand studies, the project specifications and expected costs, as well as the financing options. If the USP provides all these requirements, then they can move on to the next stage, which is the feasibility stage. In this feasibility stage, the proposal should contain detailed financial model and evidence of the value of the project. It should also look at issues of economic and social impacts assessment, also provide technical, economic, land and financial and legal feasibility, among others. So within the Ministry of Public Works, which is the central unit, there is a committee that has been created, which is tasked to verify whether the project is of public interest. This system that is put in place by Chile has helped the ministry to efficiently reject or approve projects at the first stage, which is the pre-feasibility stage, and in so doing, they avoid the drain on public resources, because projects that are not feasible are eliminated at that stage. So the next country that I'm going to look at is Argentina. The law that provides for USPs is the Presidential Decree 966 of 2005. It regulates the process for USPs. It provides for an upfront bid bond together with the project details, feasibility studies, and estimated investment amounts. It also, just like Chile, it also has two stages. The first stage is the preliminary stage, where an ad hoc committee is created to evaluate USPs jointly together with the Ministry of Federal Planning and the Ministry of Finance. This ad hoc committee is required to make a report within 60 days to assess whether the project can move on to the next stage. If it is determined by the committee that the project is of public interest, then the USP proponent is required to also make a detailed proposal on their thing. Argentina. I'm also going to discuss the Australia experience of USPs. Australia consists of 6 states, and each of these states has used USPs to work for them for economic development as well. I'm going to look at Queensland first. The law that regulates USPs in Queensland is the policy on public-private partnerships. That the guidance material sets out a comprehensive framework for analyzing and delivering all major infrastructure projects in support of government strategic objectives. According to these guidance materials, if an agency receives a USP from a private party, it must first be assessed for priority against the relevant agency's strategic plan. And if the agency considers that the proposal to be a priority, then the proposal can follow one of 2 courses of action. The first, that can be treated as a solicited project. And the second is that it can be awarded an exclusive mandate, which gives the private party the right to fully develop its proposal without competition. There are some before a USP is given exclusive rights, it should first be before a private party is granted exclusive rights, the committee must first ensure that that the proposal does not address the same or similar need that is already being considered by the government or is already under active and advanced consideration by another private sector party. It should also satisfy itself that the private sector has demonstrated commercial advantage over the other proponents. Another exclusive mandate is that they will not be granted when the USP is seeking to place the risk, cost of payment, and all the obligations of the government. If this is the case, then the proposal will be subjected to competitive bidding in order to ensure value for money. I'm also going to look at another state of New South Wales. The law that provides for USPs in New South Wales is it's titled Working with Government Guidelines for Privately Financed Projects, which was released in November 2001. And most USPs involve a request for direct negotiations with government. USPs are received and assessed for strategic priority, value for money, public interest, and justification for direct negotiations. This assessment is extremely rigorous and has proven difficult for many USP proponents to move on to the next stage. Out of the 10 unsolicited proposals that have been formally submitted and assessed, the New South Wales government accepted only one, and it has now been delivered. The project has a relatively low value, and it relied on real property rather than intellectual property as grounds for direct negotiations. That is the end of my discussion. I'm going to invite my colleague to talk about the South African experience in dealing with USPs.
My name is Gloria and I'm going to talk about the South African experience. South Africa is another country with substantial PP experience. From 2000 to 2014 April, South Africa has implemented about 24 national and provincial PPs, which are equaling to $8 billion of investment. We also have the Treasury which governs the national and provincial PPs is the Treasury Regulation 16 that was issued under the Public Finance Investment Act of 1999. This regulation actually spells out the PP processes, the requirements, the approvals, and the institutional responsibilities. We've also seen that South Africa has developed a framework on how to manage the USPs. However, some of the state-owned entities are not required to go through any of the national treasury PPs and USPs, and for them they can develop their separate processes. Also, the
South Africa National Roads Agency has created its own PPs and USP frameworks that, although this was do not contain any evaluation processes. South Africa National Roads Agency it has created its own PPs and USP frameworks that don't contain any description of the evaluation process. So as explained earlier, for any USPs to be considered, it must involve innovative designs, have the project development and management, and also be cost-effective methods of how the services are going to be delivered. Similarly, in South Africa, a market test has to be done to determine whether the other firms that are interested in taking up the projects. And in case there are no other firms that are interested in the project, then now the public agencies can actually negotiate directly to the USPs. That is if there are no responses from the competing bidders. So now if a project has moved to the procurement stage, at that point they are not required to use any data, they don't have to take up any concepts apart from those that are actually slated under the USPs. So that is used as a basis of the procurement process, as a basis of the negotiation for the bidders. But for cases where the competing bidders win, then for them they actually have to they can use USPs that do not, they can use policies or processes that don't involve the USP projects. They can use processes that don't involve the USP projects. So under all the experiences that South Africa has gone through, they've also faced some criticisms, which I'm going to go through briefly. The first criticism they have received is a lack of understanding of the USP framework, whereby if any policies are made by consultants other than those of the government, then it becomes very hard for the government officials to actually understand how the processes are going to be under that framework. So that one has also posed as a challenge. The next challenge they've faced is a lack of consistent implementation of the frameworks because of the decentralized PP models. So we've seen that, for example, the state-owned entities, they can develop their own processes. So that in turn kind of divides up the whole process, which makes it harder to have clear accountability. Then it will be prone to corruption, which all of these challenges we've seen many of the South African PPs go through. Then the next challenge is about lack of clarity regarding the level, lack of clarity regarding the legal hierarchy between the USP framework and the bilateral agreements. Even if there is a PP law, including the USP regulations, some of the government officials do not believe that their agreements are supposed to actually go through those. So that also poses as a challenge, especially if they're competitive bidders, because the government officials will be expecting that their projects will have to go through that direct and they don't need to go through any laws. Then the last challenge they face is lack of appreciation of the value of the PPs by the political decision makers. For some of the decisions which are made on top, people are not consulted, meaning that the decisions that are made are given higher priority. So that one puts a conflict of interest, because these are decisions that have been made by the high levels, by the high officials, so they can actually make their own demands. It means that their assessment process it means that the assessment process has not been followed properly. So that one is poses as a challenge for the PPs to be able to succeed. So that is briefly what I'm going to talk about South Africa. It's a good learning experience that we can learn from, see the challenge they've gone through. We can actually borrow that and make sure we don't face the same issues. So I'm going to invite the next colleague of mine to come and give their experience about the African Development Bank.
Kenyangi Grace is my name. I'm going to talk about the experience of USPs as seen by the Asian Development Bank. The Asian Development Bank has seen USPs in the following countries: Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, China, Guinea, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. The Asian Development Bank has been seen as a major player in the infrastructure financing of the PP projects in Bangladesh. Under the Public-Private Infrastructure Development Facilities, ADB has been providing long-term loans for projects since 2008 through the Infrastructure Development Company, which is a state-owned specialized infrastructure financing institution. In 2017, ADB estimated that Asia and the Pacific must spend $1.7 trillion a year on infrastructure until 2030 in order to maintain growth, meet social needs, and respond to the climate change. Out of the $1.7 trillion that was supposed to be spent over a year, we see that the Asian Development Bank expected $204 billion to come from the private sector investment. ADB has responded to this need through loans and technical assistance projects with PPP components. As of December 2018, ADB was mandated to provide transaction advisory on 12 projects and supported 23 applications for private sector applications in the infrastructure through the Asian Pacific Project Preparation Facility, which is the AP3F. AP3F has worked with 16 DMCs with total approved fund of $16.2 million that supported various infrastructure investments within the Asian Development Bank. In terms of the capacity building, AP3F continues to work with 15 countries to enhance their capacities to undertake PPP arrangements through advisory services, training, and sector-based workshops. The Asian Development Bank notes that there is a criteria that they must follow to consider the eligibility of the unsolicited proposals within these countries, and this criteria follows. One of the criteria is competitive advantage at bid evaluation. The mode of competitive bidding for unsolicited proposals may include a bonus system or any other appropriate method that may be proposed by the PP authority and approved by the approving authority. According to the guidelines for unsolicited proposals 2016, the bonus of the unsolicited bidder would be equivalent to 7% of the bid submitted by the unsolicited bidder. The second criteria is the compensation of the project development cost. With regard to any project development cost, guidelines for the unsolicited proposals 2016 expressly states that all costs and any other expenses associated with the preparation and submission of the PPP project will be fully borne by the original component of the project. The third criteria is the government support of land acquisition and settlement cost. ADB notes that there is no specific reference that is made to the government support for land acquisition and settlement costs. However, the PPP procurement guidelines shall apply to the unsolicited proposals subject to the incorporation of the requirements of the Unsolicited Proposal Guidelines 2016. According to the guidelines of Unsolicited Proposals 2016, which has now been revised and it's now referred to the Unsolicited Proposals 2018, the private sector proponent can submit a concept note setting out the proposed PP project scope and its relevant experience for the authority to look through, and it is submitted to the contracting authority for review and consideration with the proper applicable line ministry and the PP authority. If the concept that has been submitted obtains the necessary approvals from the authority, then the applicable proponent will be asked to submit its detailed unsolicited proposal. However, the government is not obliged to consider this proposal as it goes through these steps. This marks my presentation on how the Asian Development Bank looks at the unsolicited proposals in the countries that I said up above, including China, Thailand, Vietnam, and the rest. I now want to introduce in my other colleague, who is Christian, to talk about the guidelines of USPs to the Ministry of Finance in Uganda.
From the above literature, and in lieu of developing countries achieving from unsolicited proposals, there are guidelines that the developing countries need to follow and benchmark in order to achieve and benefit from unsolicited proposals. And among them are public interest, that unsolicited proposals must align with the national infrastructure priorities in order to meet the need. The public interest criteria should also assess that the unsolicited proposals should consider sustainability and climatic change challenges so that all these are mitigated. The other guideline that should be considered is value for money, and in value for money we are looking at the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness of the project, that the project should be able to be innovative and the risks involved in the project should be able to be mitigated so that we achieve the economy that we would want to from the project. The other guideline that should be considered is affordability. Governments must understand that the unsolicited proposals may impact the public finances, including the fiscal liabilities, and therefore it's very essential that they note that the project that they're about to take on is affordable, so it doesn't affect the finances of the government. Fair market pricing. Unsolicited bids should always be given out to the public so that they attract more people, and so there is a lot of bargaining power from the other bidders, and in so doing you have a competitive advantage of getting something of value, so it is to the benefit of the society. The other guideline that should be considered is transparency and accountability. A number of unsolicited proposals, there are a lot and many stakeholders, and therefore disclosure of the PPP and everything from the process should be given out so that people know their roles and responsibilities, and it helps to generate a good output and give us economy for the project. The other and the most important of all, that the PPP should, the unsolicited proposal should be aligned within the PPP process. It's very important that the decision that is made on the unsolicited proposals should be in line with the process and the policy of the PPP that is in place. When all of this is done, the government is able to benefit from the unsolicited bids that they will have received from the private sector. In conclusion, therefore, through this experience, developing countries like Uganda can achieve more results from unsolicited bids if they can be able to benchmark from the experiences of developed nations, how they've been able to handle unsolicited bids, and with the effort of a good policy on unsolicited bids. I want to thank all my team members for their presentation. I want to thank you so much for listening to us.